Housing is now only for high earners. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your hashtag not sponsored cheapish coffee, and I want to discuss an article from Domain which is looking at how much money you need to have to borrow to buy a house. Housing is no longer for the average house. Well, housing ownership is no longer for the average Aussie. Housing is no longer the tool that can be used to elevate yourself and step yourself up the social ladder. It's becoming a two-speed economy. Those that are the land owners and those are the tenants. Sad reality. Let's have a look at this. And sorry for my week off. Nothing exciting, just a lot of work. So I've been, luckily, very busy. And the reason I mention that is I've put a poll up and I want to discuss this in the next video. So I want to draw your attention to that right now. There we have it. This is the question I'm asking. Here we go. Would you be impacted by a recession? You can find this on the community tab of the channel or on your phone somehow. And let us know your opinions on this one. You know, no, yes, or already are. And we'll have a discussion about this in the next video because I think there's going to be, quite a spread in responses. So let's start by having a look at this article. So Just Broken, how much you need to earn to buy a house. Okay, now we're at a point where housing isn't, sadly, it's not going to be for everyone anymore. That's where Australia is changing. It's changing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's reality. The average household income, of home buyers has increased to $220,000, a nearly 40% jump from just 4 years ago. So there you go. 220. What's the average wage? Last time we looked, around 90, 95. So if you've got two people earning the average wage, you're not at this level. Home ownership now is for the above average. Almost a third of all home loan applicants now make more than $200,000 at the expense of those on less than $150,000. Jardine analysis of Commonwealth Bank data shows. It's just the reality. Wages are also going up. I mean, here's the thing. Housing is still affordable if you have a professional couple who are earning each over six figures. You don't want to get into the mess of the last video we talked about. The gentleman who was on 200 grand, his wife was on 100, and they'd borrowed the average amount you need to get into Sydney, sadly, and interest rates have gone up. So if we have a look, what's the chart here? Oh boy, so 0 to 75,000, you're right down the bottom, and there you go. Look, 200 to 500,000, above 500,000. Oh boy, I mean. Be nice to be on that wicket, guys. Let us know in the comments if you are, how little difference to most of your life it makes if you're over 500 a year. The average full-time annual income in Australia is $98,000 as of November 23. So there we go. We're nearly at $100,000. So you need two people earning the average income to even be in the ballpark of of a significant number of borrowers to get home. That's it, isn't it? The average household income, average buyer in 2019 had a household income of $160,000. So you can see here, this was the pre-pandemic era. I remember discussing house prices there, the affordability issue there. And if we look back at those prices, they seem, it just shows you how insane it's been, particularly here in Brisbane. Brisbane has just gone utterly nuts. It's gone bonkers. One thing I'm noticing in my suburb is the Mercedes-Benz has been replaced as the Asian status symbol car with the Tesla. We've got Teslas everywhere around here. And I'm there in my old hybrid. So Jardine chief economist Carlos Queixo said, the analysis raised troubling questions about who can afford to buy a home in Australia despite recent price falls. Yeah, it's housing, home ownership in Australia is no longer for the average Aussie. You've got to be a professional couple, both working, and by profession, I mean like a tradesman or a professional accountant or architect or engineer. You both need to be working to be pulling in that money. So no wonder you've got this continued call for childcare for all of these things, and everyone looks at Rachel weird having so many kids, because most people probably honestly can't afford to have more than a few. Because while I'd make the argument repeatedly that it's not as expensive as the media portrays, I don't live a normal life. We both, I'm working from home, guys. It's 9:30, and my kids just made me breakfast. It was awesome. What we've seen over the last 4 years or so is that the share of buyers who make median or below income have decreased from 30% to 18%. It's been really hollowed out. Part of the increase has been due to income growth being relatively strong, but even when you adjust for that, the shift is well and truly beyond that. Yeah, Australia is changing. Australia is changing. It's just going to get even more expensive. So the political party that you'd hope would be the ones looking out for, the below income earners, the working class, the strugglers, has the Labor Party traditionally, although I'd say Howard's battlers probably did more for them. It seems to have abandoned them. Look at all their policies. Look at the MG guys just talking about the emission targets on utes. Oh boy. Property prices across the country have mostly recovered following steep downturns brought by near record Reserve Bank interest rate hikes. Yeah, okay, it's a downturn. It's coming off a peak, guys. It cut off a little off a peak. This wasn't the big calamitous crash that people have been predicting happening for years. I think we need to take a much larger perspective and look at Australia on the global stage. We're an insignificant colony on the edge of the world that teaches people English, that people come to for holidays, that's safe, stable, that provides good quality, reliable, natural resources, and that people want to park their money in. I mean, who wouldn't want to send your kids to Australia to get a future? I know people love to bitch and moan, but there's a lot of problems in other parts of the world. The median house price in Sydney is now almost 1.6 million, a record, while Melbourne is below its peak at 1.05 and Brisbane at 888 and Perth 742 are at records on domain data. Look at that. Look at that in Brisbane. This is why when designing our house, we've created it in such a way that the kids can stay for a while. Chayco's analysis noted that those buying were using larger deposits, which indicated that the large cut to borrowing capacity over the rate hike cycle were not affecting affluent buyers. It's been a market that's been increasingly driven by higher income households and large deposits. Partly that can be people who have saved a bit more, but in our view, it's mostly from people who have family wealth. And it consolidates. This is what's going to happen, everyone. This is the thing, the goal we all need to have. You need to train your children in investing, in building wealth and saving. I think the FIRE movement, for all its issues, is something that needs to be introduced at a young age. And you can't depend on the education system. I mean, most of them are teachers that have got no idea. I still remember that article we read about the teacher who bought 5 properties, was renting them all out at interest only, and was nearly in tears because of the rent freezes. Or I think, what was it? Remember when we had the lockdowns and they restricted what landlords could do? There you go. It's up to you to ensure your kids can learn that. And you don't need to be wealthy to teach them the concept of building passive income, of investing, of saving. I think it's a mindset. One advantage this generation has now compared to us, or my generation, trans boomer, trans boomer geriatric millennials who we didn't have access to the tools that exist now. Back then, it wasn't as easy to just start building up and investing and putting money in. Now people can do it on their phone. They can do it easily, and then it can start seeing the rewards. It's a situation where there's a real split down wealth and income lines. It's becoming a case where the average household can no longer buy the average home. No, yeah, exactly. Australia's changing. He said if the trend continues, it could do fatal damage to national myths about the value of hard work. No? Well, what's the biggest expense you have in your life right now? Think about that. What's the thing that, I mean, what was it? Just a couple of days ago, a lot of people had to send money to the tax man. Yeah, business activity statements were due, payments were due. So now we're unpaid tax collectors, which is awesome. But how much of our costs are taken away by the government? I would make the argument to try that, well, here we go. Apparently it's a human right that we need, a right that to housing. So then why is the government extracting money from you before you have a house? We need to let people write off the costs of their primary residence. That should be the priority. Home ownership should be the priority. Then your hard work goes towards you, not towards someone else. That would be my argument. But I don't think there's a political climate for that in Australia. There's more calls for social housing. And then you get people dependent on the state, which I would argue is not what you want ideologically, but others, well, they seem to love that idea. It reduces social cohesion. It was generally seen if you tried and really applied yourself, you can achieve it no matter your starting point. Yeah, that's kind of bullshit, though. Honestly, I mean, if you're a white man without the right connections, there's certain jobs you won't even be able to apply for. Or there's certain jobs now where you will be discriminated against here in Australia. And I'm assuming this is common knowledge and well known now because it's been going on for years. We've seen the job advertisements. We've seen the bias in people recruiting for government jobs in research papers. This is common knowledge. It should be. Maybe it's not. But now, unless you come from a family who owns a home or has some wealth, it's really hard to buy a home. AMP chief economist Dr. Shane Oliver agreed the trend was concerning. It's an unfortunate reflection of where the property market is at present, he said. To some degree, it's self-evident because we've seen a rise in average loan sizes. So it can't be lower incomes getting in. It's a reflection of poor affordability, as prices in relation to incomes that squeeze lower income owners and higher income earners can get in. Only a small percentage of workers are benefiting, Oliver said. And I mean, I wonder if there'll be any discussion about the significant population growth driven by migration to Australia. Oh, well, I mean, it's not, there isn't the political will to change it, everyone, not in the major two parties. Just look at their policies. Look at both of them. It's gonna continue. And you've got the lobbying from the university sector, from a lot of other industries. It's how it is. So with that in mind, you need to prepare for this. This is the future. You're not going to see a drastic correction in the house prices that's going to allow you to get in. You need to earn more income. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's the reality of it. Axon Finance Director and mortgage broker Clinton Waters said he was more regularly dealing with high-income buyers. What we see at the coalface is that there is certainly a trend towards those with stronger incomes being approved for mortgage lending, he said. We see it as becoming very much a two-speed market of those who can afford servicing and those who can't. That's the reality of it. It's about the servicing of the loan. We saw in the last video, the guy on Reddit, he's struggling to service the loan. And everyone's going, oh, he's bought too much house. And yeah, it feels like it, but that's what he needs to buy just to get in Sydney. Shit. Oh, boy. I mean, look here, auction, 1.1 to 1.2 million, a 3-bed, 2-bath, and just one car. Okay, now, that alone is going to be a problem because usually if you've got two professionals, you both need 2 cars. Or I guess you need to take public transport. I mean, and it's a lovely little place, a lovely little house. You don't have any front yard, though. Affordability is a broad definition. But to buy a median house in Melbourne, Sydney, or even Brisbane, you need a sizable mortgage at a relatively large loan-to-value ratio. Water said buyers on lower incomes were not inquiring about their ability to get a loan. They don't call us, he said. But my assessment of it is there's a bit of resignation to the fact that it is unaffordable. So they've given up on owning a home, which is a... Here's the thing. There's a social stigma here in Australia. There are some advantages to not owning a home, okay, because it anchors you in one place. I mean, you get flexibility. But at certain points in your life, when you're having kids, you want that anchor. You want that stability. That's what they need. They prefer. Carlos said it was unlikely buying a home would become more affordable in the short term. Where to from here? It's hard to see the situation getting any better anytime soon. Affordability will be improved a bit if and when we see a rate cut by the RBA, but history shows it will probably make housing prices go even higher. Yeah, that's the reality of it. The thing is, supply isn't meeting demand. And it's not going to meet demand anytime in the future. Because you've got to remember, guys, you know what? I'll bring that up. We'll look at that. Hang on. It's really hard to move the needle with affordability. It's just broken. So let's have a look at an argument I've made, and I will just cut to that. Hang on. Okay, I've got this set up. This is what I call the pillars of the housing market. And I've been doing YouTube for several years now, and I follow the news. I discuss the news, and I got suckered into a lot of the negative property doomer stuff back in the day. Every day it was another article which was just spreading more fear, spreading more anxiety, making people believe that property was about to come crashing down. Now, the longer that I've been doing this, the more I've been looking into the industry that I would say is fear clicks, fear views, fear eyeballs, which is in media. It tends to harden you to a lot of this stuff that you see. It really is in the media and social media and YouTube everywhere and the printed paper. It's all the same. It's about hyperbolic fear-mongering to get your eyeballs, because we're evolved to be worried, to prepare, to be concerned. And there's a whole group of people who are there waiting for this big crash in property in Australia. Some people made financial decisions based on headlines. I remember one person reaching out to me. They sold their house, bought a whole bunch of silver and moved into a garage, waiting for it to crash down. Now, I mean, sure, good on you if you want to do that. But if you want a stable life for your kids, maybe it might have been better just to stay put, not try and follow the big gain or the big win. What do you reckon? So I've become a little bit more cynical, and I've put this little slide deck together of what I call the pillars of our housing market. Okay, these are things that are holding it up, as much as people hate the fact that it's being held up. Let's have a look at them all. Now, the first one is fewer bad loans. This data is out of date, but I need to update it, but it still is making the argument that the bad loans that we have here in Australia are a tiny fraction. The non-performing loans are a tiny fraction of all of the loans. We're not seeing people throw the keys and walk away. It's different to America. You can't compare us to America because you're kind of ball and chain locked to your house. Okay? And while we do have we don't have as many woke policies as the Americans do with regards to home loans and government backing of them. We've got maybe 10,000 people that can get in at a 2% deposit. That's not much overall with the whole market. Okay, it sounds great in a soundbite for the politicians who want to sell it, but in reality, the difference is going to be insignificant overall. Then we've got opening the floodgates. Migration to Australia has shot right back up. It's not crashing. People still want to come to Australia. It's not going to change. And that's going to put continued demand for all of housing. And you may think, but students don't live in houses. Well, they live in apartments, which sucks up resources which could go into building houses. Or they live in shared houses. Okay? It's not changing. That's both governments. We can see right here. You've got what I call the construction apocalypse. Now, this playlist is out of date. I need to update these slides, but we've had many, many builders going under. I make an argument that this is partly due to, among other things, remember that period when businesses could trade while insolvent? Now, that scared the shit out of me because I'm a small business owner. work in the construction sector. I don't build things, I design stuff. So I'm adjacent to a lot of these other industries. And it's hard enough to get paid normally, let alone when they're running while insolvent. I think a lot of normal people who are not exposed to this industry don't know what the terms are like. I mean, let us know in the comments what the longest terms are or how hard it is to get paid sometimes. And even the richest people are the worst. Honestly, they can be the worst. So the problem is this is reducing our ability to meet the demand. We can't supply as many houses, as many homes for people because we're losing talent and capacity in the sector. It just keeps going. There you go. Number 4 is government support. Market intervention and economic stimulus. It's not going to go away. It's just the tool they're going to use. You're going to have different flavors of it depending on who you get in Parliament. They've juiced the market, the RBA cash rate. While not strictly the government, it crashed down. We're now above emergency levels. We're at a normal rate. What we have now is normal. That shows you how damaged we are. If you think, no, it's normal at 1%, 2%. No, it's normal now. This is normal. It should be around this level. 3% used to be the emergency buffer. You've got Home Builder, which juiced up the market. You've got home buyer grants up to 88 grand in some circumstances. 5 and 2% government loan guarantees, negative gearing, which is part of our culture, and the super withdrawals. Now, the super withdrawals, you know what? I realized the way I brought in this PowerPoint, you can't see my mouse. Anyway, the super withdrawals, ideologically, I've got no issue with that, but that did influence the housing market. I mean, it probably was perfect timing. With the dip that we had, you combine the reduced immigration, so you had a dip in housing prices, so people jumped in while they could. Now, the problem is some people believed the RBA when the media reported that rates wouldn't go up till 2024, and now they're starting to face reality. If zombie companies kept alive, the trading while insolvent, which everyone seems to forget. Oh, and the JobKeeper impact. Then finally, you've got the not in my backyard crowd, all the local councils. That's going to be interesting. You've got market competition. 50% of people live in these 3 areas in our country. Okay, when everyone says Australia is such a huge, big continent, yeah, but you either want to live in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane. Sure, you've got Adelaide, sure, you've got Perth, but half the people live in these 3 cities. When my father immigrated to Australia, it was either Sydney or Melbourne. You've got National Construction Code changes every year, driving up the costs of construction. Remember, the basic housing cost is going to be the construction. It just happens every year. Rule changes, regulation, people wanting to do better. These are environmental changes, so it's good for the environment, but housing is going to cost more for the next generation. Just understand. If you're lobbying, you've probably got a generation that's bitching about housing, but are also the ones lobbying for the changes that are driving up housing costs. I guess that only comes with age and experience. APRA interventions, it's not a free market with anything here in Australia, don't kid yourself. APRA will intervene to adjust their buffers to ensure they don't choke off credit. Okay, so that's what they've said. You've got family support. I've polled the viewers of my channel here, and the majority of you would help out family members. You've got the FOMO impact. If we look here at the percentage of dwellings that changed hands in 2021 compared to the overall stock on the market, and if we say only the 10,000 2%ers are the biggest risk, which they're not. I know they're not, but we're just using this as an example. You can see how much housing's there and how much isn't at risk. You've got a demographic shift, which I still haven't created a slide for, but a move towards smaller houses. So guys, let's have a chat about all of this. I think, sadly, what we're seeing is a change in Australia. We're moving away from a time when, like my neighbour, a Sicilian neighbour, came over to Australia, worked up the cane fields, came back here and built his own house bit by bit. It's not that Australia anymore, guys. It's changing. Now you need 2 professionals, usually educated or with a trade background, working hard, long hours, earning good money, just to get an average house. Is it worth it? You tell me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for letting me have a holiday. Take care, and I'll see you all next time. Oh, and One more thing before we go. Remember to check out the poll and have your say and give us your share of if a recession would impact you. And we'll talk about it in the next channel or next video. Take care. See you guys. Bye for now.